There are three very important keys you must know before you even make any attempt to study the book of Revelation. Indeed, studying the book of Revelation has so much blessing upon the individual reading or studying the book, and even people who listen to the readings of the book. Hi, you are welcome to the Transformation Hour. We are going to dive deep into the study of the most considered difficult book in the Bible. My name is Martin Insia, a minister and a preacher of the Word of God. Let's go straight to the studies. Number one, you need to understand that the book of Revelation is a picture book. The book of Revelation uses pictures, symbols, and figures to communicate facts. If you are a driver, on the road you will see signposts. Some of these signs have interesting marks and symbols on them. They communicate very vital information to the driver and road users. It is required of every driver to know that these symbols are placed at various places to communicate to road users. That is why in the various driving schools, these road signs are taught critically. The book of Revelation uses similar idea. God communicates to man through symbols. So don't go to the book of Revelation expecting to literalize anything you see. There are a number of symbols that are used in the book of Revelation to communicate very vital information faith-wise. So a picture is shown. The book of Revelation chapter number 1 and verse number 1. The revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave him to show his servant things which must shortly take place. And he sent and signified it by his angel to his servant John, who bore witness to the word of God and to the testimony of Jesus Christ, to all things that he saw. So John wrote the things that he saw. The book of Revelation is not like the other epistles. Though in Revelation chapter number 2 and chapter number 3, we got some epistles that were written to the 7 churches in Asia. However, the book of Revelation entirely cannot be read like we read the epistles that were written by Paul, Galatians, Ephesians, and the books of Corinthians. When we do that, we try to undermine the significance of the symbols that are used in the book of Revelation. In the book of Revelation, we are dealing with an apocalyptic literature. Apocalyptic literature is an ancient literature that uses symbols to communicate meanings. So we look at the picture and we ask ourselves, what is the picture? And the follow-up question also comes this way, that what does the picture tells? So this is the way we must approach the book of Revelation. All that he saw, John wrote the things that he saw. So he describes pictures, and we need to understand the picture and the meaning. Now, when we take the lamb as described in the book of Revelation, the lamb, if literalized, will mean a lamb. However, that's not what the book of Revelation is talking about. The lamb is in reference to Jesus Christ. The dragon also represents Satan. We also have the worldly powers that opposes God, and that is the beast. So a beast is described in the book of Revelation. The intention of John is not to talk about a real beast, but a beast that represents something. Let's try to have this idea in mind, that the book of Revelation is symbolic and need to be treated as such. If you go to the health center and you see a skull with a cross in it, there may be words written under it or not. But anybody with that background would understand that that symbol communicates a certain information or is saying something. You see a bottle and there is a kind of toxic symbol on it. Sometimes you wouldn't see anything written like that, but sometimes you see that the symbol tells you that no, the content of this bottle in this room is very toxic. These are ways by which we use symbols to communicate facts and meaning today. The same idea must be applied whenever we approach the book of Revelation. The question is, why is it that such an important book had to be written in symbols, pictures, and figurative ways? Well, a lot has been said about using pictures to communicate information. A picture is worth 1,000 words. Someone's saying about that. That if somebody shows you a picture telling you something, you tend to remember for longer period at a higher percentage than listening to mere words. Probably that is the reason why Jesus Christ chose to write this book to the church using symbols. As a matter of fact, the book of Revelation, Apocalypse, does not intend to hide truth, but to uncover and reveal truth to mankind. So the book of Revelation is not intended to confuse readers and people who study the book. We must actually approach the book with the right mindset and understanding. Another important key to understanding and approaching the book of Revelation is to understand the book as an immediate book. The book was actually written to the original recipient in the Asia Minor region called Asia. The book was actually written to the 7 churches in Asia Minor. The time that the church was facing persecution, intense one indeed. Christ needed to comfort them. Christ needed to say something to them to indicate that as he overcame death, as he has remained victorious, should they remain faithful to till the end, they are also going to be victorious, no matter how intense the persecution is going to be. So the book was actually written to real individuals, Christians, during the first century. And these people understood and benefited from this book. Though it's a prophecy, as we read in the book, in the first chapter and verse number 3, blessed is he who reads and those who hear the words of this prophecy and keep those things which are written in it, for the time is near. The book says that the time is near. So the book actually is not about the distant future. Consider the book of Isaiah, which was written more than 700 years before the coming of Christ. It was in a distant future. But the book of Revelation says the time is near. It wasn't in the distant future. It was written for the near or the immediate future. That is why the readers and the hearers of the book were promised of blessing. If the book was to benefit the people who will come in the remote future, how come the readers of or the recipient and the readers of the book were promised blessing then time? All these come together to help understand that a book was an immediate one. Another reason why we say the book of Revelation was an immediate book was this. In the book of Revelation chapter 22, John was told not to seal up the book because it was for the immediate future. But in Daniel chapter 12, Daniel was told to seal up the book Why? Because it was not meant for the immediate future. Since Daniel had to seal up the book for the remote future, that directly contrasts the statement made in Revelation chapter number 22 that Daniel was not to seal up the book because it was for the immediate future. The third and most important key that anyone must have before attempting to study the book of Revelation is the book of Revelation has its root in the Old Testament. What does it mean? The writer of the book of Revelation used terms that were already known. Christians and people of the first century knew the things, the symbols, the manner in which the book of Revelation was written. Some of the prophetic utterances that were used were already known. It had its roots in the book, in the books that had already been written. So we say the book of Revelation is deeply rooted in the Old Testament. So being ignorant about what has been written in the books like Daniel, we have Isaiah, and other prophetic books will not contribute much to your understanding. If you tend to neglect these books, you may think that things that are being talked or spoken about in the book of Revelation are new things. No, they are not. However, there is no direct quotation from the Old Testament in the book of Revelation. More than 300 passages that are in the Revelation has more direct correlation and reference to the Old Testament passages as we see. For instance, the beast in the book of Revelation chapter number 13 is also spoken of in Daniel chapter number 7. So the prophet Daniel made use of the idea of the beast as John also uses in the book of Revelation. The tree of life in Revelation chapter number 22 is also mentioned in Genesis chapter 2 and chapter number 3. The tree of life. So you see, the idea of the tree of life as used in the New Testament in the book of Revelation could be traced back to Genesis chapter 2 and 3. The Son of Man, as we see in Revelation chapter 1 and verse number 13, comes directly from Daniel chapter 7 verse 13 through 14. So deeply rooted in the Old Testament is the book of Revelation. So the Bible is not confusing anyone. The Bible is giving us terms, symbols, and ideas that were already in existence and the people were familiar with. So let's have these three mindsets before we attempt the studying of the book of Revelation. God bless you in your attempt to understand the book of Revelation, and I want to treat you to subscribe to this very channel, The Transformation Hour, as we begin to study the book chapter by chapter and try to understand some punchlines, some critical symbolisms, some critical pictures that we need to understand. In a nutshell, the book of Revelation is a picture book. The book of Revelation is an immediate book. And never forget that the book of Revelation is deeply rooted in the Old Testament, such that most of the things spoken of in the book of Revelation could be traced back to the Old Testament for their meaning. God bless you and keep you as you continue to study, preach the word.